These are fictional dramatizations, inspired by scripture, written with reverence for God, not a replacement for the Bible. Read the word for truth.
Do you remember the ear, the one cut off in the Garden of Gethsemane? Most people skip over it. A small detail in a big story. A single verse in a chapter full of violence and betrayal. But that ear changed everything. Not because of the miracle, though the miracle was extraordinary, because of who owned the ear, because of what he saw, because of what he carried with him for the rest of his life. The man's name was Malchus, and he was not just any servant. He was the personal attendant of Caiaphas the high priest, the most powerful religious figure in all of Israel, the man who would soon condemn Jesus to death. Malchus stood at the right hand of power. He opened doors for Caiaphas. He carried messages for Caiaphas. He knew secrets that would make ordinary men tremble. And on the night they arrested Jesus, Malchus was there, not by accident, by assignment. Caiaphas sent him to make sure the arrest went smoothly, to watch, to report, to ensure that the Galilean troublemaker didn't slip away in the darkness. Malchus had done this before, dozens of times. Other false messiahs, other would-be revolutionaries, caught, tried, forgotten. This one would be the same, or so Malchus thought. The sun has set over Jerusalem. The moon is hidden behind clouds. The streets are empty. Malchus walks through the city with a band of soldiers and temple guards. 200 men, maybe 300. Torches flickering, swords clanking, sandals scraping against stone. They are going to the Garden, Gethsemane, a place on the Mount of Olives where Jesus and his followers often camp. Judas Iscariot is leading the way, one of Jesus's own disciples, betraying his teacher for 30 pieces of silver. Malchus watches Judas from behind. He doesn't trust the man. Anyone who betrays his own master for money would betray anyone, but Malchus doesn't need to trust him. He just needs him to point. "Which one is Jesus?" Malchus asks. Judas points to a figure in the distance, kneeling under an olive tree. "The one I kiss." Judas says. Malchus nods, signals the guards. They move into the garden. The air is cold. The olive trees twist against the sky like old men in pain. The ground is soft from recent rain. Malchus's feet sink into the mud with each step. He can hear someone praying, not loud, not like the Pharisees who pray on street corners to be seen. A quiet voice, desperate, broken. "Father, if there is any other way, take this cup from me." Malchus stops walking for a moment. He's heard a lot of prayers in his years serving Caiaphas. Prayers for power, prayers for money, prayers for revenge. He's never heard a prayer like this. This man is not asking for anything for himself. He's asking to be spared, not because he's afraid, because he knows what's coming, and he doesn't want to do it. But he will. Malchus shakes his head, keeps walking. Sentiment is weakness. He's seen it before. Men who believe God speaks to them. Men who think they are chosen. They always break. This one will break too. Judas steps forward. He walks up to Jesus, calls him Rabbi, teacher, and then he kisses him on the cheek. The signal. Malchus raises his hand. "Now," he says, "take him." The guards rush forward. Hands grab Jesus, rough hands, hands that have held swords and clubs and torches for hours in the cold night. And then something unexpected happens. One of Jesus's followers pulls out a sword, a short blade, the kind fishermen use. He swings. Malchus sees the blade coming at the last second. He turns his head. The sword misses his skull, but it catches his ear, slices it clean off. The pain is instant, white hot. Blood pours down his neck. His hand goes to the side of his face, feels the missing flesh, feels the wet, feels the horror. He screams, falls to his knees. The world spins. He can hear shouting, confusion. Someone is yelling at the man with the sword. Someone else is grabbing the prisoner. And then a voice cuts through the chaos. "Put your sword away." The voice is calm, steady, like a parent speaking to a child who has done something wrong but is still loved. Malchus opens his eyes. Jesus is standing over him. The prisoner, the Galilean, the man they came to arrest. And he is not running. He is not hiding. He is kneeling in the dirt. In Malchus's blood, Jesus reaches down, picks up the ear from the ground. It's still warm, still bleeding. Malchus tries to pull away. He doesn't want this man to touch him. He doesn't want to be healed by the enemy. But Jesus' hand is gentle, firm, warm. He presses the ear back into place, and the pain stops. Malchus touches his face. His ear is back, whole, healed. No scar, no wound, no evidence that it was ever gone. He looks at Jesus. Jesus is looking at him, not with anger, not with triumph, not with pity, with love. The kind of love Malchus has never seen before. The kind of love that makes no sense. The kind of love that heals your enemy before they kill you. Malchus opens his mouth to speak, but no words come. What do you say to the man you came to arrest who just healed your ear? Jesus stands up, turns to the guards. If you are looking for me, let these men go. The guards grab him again, drag him away, and Malchus stands in the garden, his hand on his ear, watching the man who healed him being led to his death. The walk to Jerusalem is a blur. Malchus follows the mob. He doesn't know why. His job is done. The prisoner is caught. He could go home, wash the blood from his clothes, forget this night ever happened. But his feet keep moving toward the city, toward the trial, toward the cross. He needs to see what happens next. He needs to understand why this man healed him when he should have killed him. His ear doesn't hurt anymore, but his heart does, and Malchus doesn't know what to do with that. The house of Caiaphas is large, stone walls, iron gates, guards everywhere. Jesus is taken inside, to the chamber where the trial will happen. Malchus stays in the courtyard. He can't go in, not yet. His hands are still shaking. His ear is still tingling. He stands by a fire, warming his hands, watching the flames. Other servants gather around. They've heard what happened. They stare at his ear. Did he really heal you? One asks. Malchus nods. What did it feel like? Malchus thinks for a long time, like being forgiven. He says, for something I haven't done yet. The servants don't understand. They laugh, shake their heads. Malchus doesn't laugh. He just touches his ear and waits. The blade swung wild in the olive dark. A fisherman's rage, a misplaced mark. But the hand that healed was the hand they bound. The only piece on that killing ground. An ear restored, a heart undone. A servant met the risen sun, not with thunder, not with fire, but with mercy deeper than his own desire. The courtyard of Caiaphas is cold, not just from the night air, from something else, something that hangs over the stones like a fog. Fear. The servants feel it. The guards feel it. Even the fire seems to burn lower than it should, as if the flames themselves are afraid to draw attention. Malchus stands near the brazier. His hands are stretched toward the heat, but he can't feel it. His skin is numb. His mind is somewhere else. He keeps touching his ear, his left ear, the one that was gone, the one that is now whole. He's touched it 100 times since the garden, maybe 1,000. Every time he touches it, he expects to find the wound, the blood, the missing flesh. But it's not there. It's healed, perfectly healed, like it never happened. Malchus has seen healings before. He's worked for Caiaphas for 15 years. He's seen the priests pray over the sick. He's seen offerings made for the afflicted. He's seen people walk away from the temple still sick, still afflicted, still hoping. He's never seen a man pick up a severed ear and press it back into place like clay. He's never seen a man heal his enemy while his own hands were tied. He's never seen anything like Jesus, and that terrifies him. The other servants are talking. They're standing in a circle near the fire, whispering, glancing at Malchus, then looking away. He knows what they're saying. Did you see it? The Galilean healed him, right in the middle of the arrest. He just knelt down and fixed it. Why would he do that? He's the enemy. Maybe he's not the enemy. Quiet. Don't let the priests hear you say that. Malchus doesn't join the conversation. He just listens. His ear works fine now, better than fine. He can hear everything. The whispers, the crackle of the fire, the footsteps of the guards, and something else, crying. From inside the house, someone is weeping. The crying is coming from the chamber where they're holding Jesus. Malchus moves closer to the door. He can't see inside, but he can hear. Jesus is not the one crying. He's heard Jesus' voice in the garden. It was calm, steady, like a river that runs deep even when the storm rages above. This crying is different. It's high, desperate. The sound of a man who has lost everything and knows it. Malchus recognizes the voice. It's Peter, the fisherman who swung the sword, the one who cut off Malchus's ear. Peter is inside, standing by the fire, waiting, watching, trying to look like he belongs, and someone has recognized him. Malchus heard it from across the courtyard. A servant girl, young, maybe 14 years old. She pointed at Peter and said, "You were with the Nazarene." Peter denied it. "I don't know what you're talking about." But Malchus knew. He saw Peter in the garden, saw him swing the sword, saw the fury in his eyes. Peter was a follower of Jesus, and now he was lying about it. Malchus moves to the edge of the courtyard. He can see Peter now, standing near another fire. His face is pale. His hands are shaking. Another servant approaches Peter. A man this time, one of Malchus's relatives. "Didn't I see you in the garden with him?" Peter's voice rises. "I told you, I don't know him." And then the rooster crowed. The sound cut through the courtyard like a blade. Peter froze. His eyes went wide. And then he understood. Jesus had told him this would happen. At the Last Supper, Jesus said, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." Peter didn't believe him. He swore he would never deny Jesus, even if he had to die with him. But he did, 3 times, just like Jesus said. Peter turned. His eyes met Malchus's for a moment, just a moment, long enough for Malchus to see the shame, the horror, the grief. Then Peter ran out of the courtyard, into the street, into the darkness, and Malchus heard him weeping, the same desperate crying he'd heard from inside, the sound of a man who had broken his own heart. Malchus should feel satisfied. Peter cut off his ear. Peter attacked him with a sword. Peter deserved punishment, deserved shame, deserved to weep. But Malchus doesn't feel satisfied. He feels empty. Because he understands Peter, not the denial, the fear. Malchus has spent his whole life serving power, serving Caiaphas, serving the priests. He's done things he's not proud of, arrested innocent people, looked the other way when the powerful abused the weak. He told himself it was duty. He told himself it was survival. He told himself he had no choice. But standing in the courtyard, watching Peter run, Malchus realizes the truth. He had a choice. He always had a choice. He just chose fear. Every time. Inside the chamber, the trial continues. Malchus can hear the voices through the walls. Caiaphas is shouting. Witnesses are lying. Accusations are flying. But Jesus is silent. He doesn't defend himself, doesn't argue, doesn't beg. He just stands there, blood on his face from the beating the guards gave him, spit on his robe from the ones who mocked him. And he says nothing. Finally, Caiaphas loses his patience. "I charge you under oath by the living God." The high priest shouts, "Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Malchus presses his ear to the wall. He hears Jesus speak. "You have said so, but I say to you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Caiaphas tears his robes. Blasphemy. He has spoken blasphemy. What more evidence do we need? The room erupts. Guards spit on Jesus. Punch him. Cover his eyes and strike him. Prophesy. "Who hit you?" Malchus pulls back from the wall. His ear is tingling again. He should be celebrating. This is what he came for. The arrest, the trial, the conviction. Soon Jesus will be handed over to Pilate, crucified, forgotten. But Malchus can't celebrate because he can't stop thinking about what Jesus said in the garden. "I could call on my Father, and he would send 12 legions of angels, 72,000 angels, right now, in this courtyard, in this city." And Jesus chose not to call them. He chose to be beaten. He chose to be spit on. He chose to die. Why? Malchus walks away from the house, out into the street. The sun is starting to rise. The sky is gray. The city is waking up. He finds himself at the edge of Jerusalem, near the gate that leads to Golgotha, the place of the skull. He doesn't know why he's here. He just knows he can't leave. He needs to see what happens next. He needs to understand. A crowd is gathering. People who heard about the arrest. People who followed Jesus. people who loved him and people who hated him. Malchus stands at the back of the crowd, his hand on his ear, waiting. The rooster crowed. The fisherman fled. The servant stood by the fire instead. 3 denials, a broken vow, tears on a face that forgot how. But Malchus watched, and Malchus heard every denial, every word. He knew the fear, he knew the shame, he knew the man, and he knew the name. The sun is fully up now, but the sky is wrong. It's not blue, it's gray. The color of ash, the color of old bruises, the color of something that has died and hasn't been buried yet. Malchus stands at the edge of the crowd outside Pilate's palace. He's been here since dawn. He hasn't eaten, hasn't drunk, hasn't slept. His ear is still tingling. The crowd is growing. Hundreds of people, maybe thousands. They've come to see what happens to the Galilean, the one who healed the sick, the one who raised the dead, the one who rode into Jerusalem on a donkey while people shouted Hosanna. Now they're shouting something else. Crucify him! Crucify him! Malchus recognizes some of the voices. He's seen them before. In the temple courts, by the Sea of Galilee, on the hillsides where Jesus fed thousands with a few loaves and fish. Some of these people ate that bread. Some of these people were healed by that man, and now they're screaming for his blood. Malchus doesn't understand. He's seen crowds turn before. He's worked for Caiaphas long enough to know that people are fickle. They love you today, they kill you tomorrow. But this is different. This is the Son of God, and they don't even know what they're doing. Just like Jesus said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." Malchus whispers those words to himself. They feel strange in his mouth, like a prayer he wasn't taught, but somehow always knew. Pilate comes out onto the stone pavement. The Roman governor, the most powerful man in Judea. He looks tired, annoyed. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't care about Jewish religious disputes. He just wants peace, order, quiet. Pilate speaks to the crowd. "What accusation are you bringing against this man?" The priests answer, "If he weren't a criminal, we wouldn't have handed him over." Pilate sighs, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." The priests shake their heads, "But we have no right to execute anyone." Pilate understands. They want Rome to do their dirty work. They want a crucifixion, Roman style, brutal, public, terrifying. Pilate takes Jesus inside the palace, questions him alone. Malchus can't hear what they say, but he watches Pilate's face when he comes back out. The governor is troubled, confused, almost afraid. "I find no fault in this man." Pilate announces. The crowd erupts. He stirs up the people all over Judea. He claims to be a king. Pilate tries to release Jesus. It's Passover. The governor always releases one prisoner at Passover. He offers them a choice. Jesus Barabbas, a murderer, a rebel, a man who took up the sword against Rome, or Jesus of Nazareth, the teacher, the healer, the man who healed Malchus's ear. Pilate thinks they'll choose Jesus. He's wrong. "Give us Barabbas." The crowd shouts. Pilate is stunned. "What should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" "Crucify him. Crucify him." Pilate hesitates. His wife has sent him a message. "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man. I've suffered terribly in a dream today because of him." But Pilate is more afraid of the crowd than he is of his wife's dreams. He calls for a basin of water, washes his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood." Pilate says, "The responsibility is yours." The crowd answers, "His blood be on us and on our children." Malchus hears those words, and something inside him freezes. His blood be on us and on our children. He thinks about his own children. 2 boys, young, asleep in their beds right now, unaware that their father is watching the Son of God being condemned to death. He thinks about the blood on his own hands, the arrests he's made, the people he's hurt, the ear that was cut off and healed. He thinks about Jesus' blood, the blood that will soon spill, the blood that Malchus helped spill. He was there in the garden. He led the guards. He stood by while they tied Jesus' hands. His blood be on us, on Malchus, on his children, on his children's children. Malchus closes his eyes. He can't watch anymore, but he can't leave either. The flogging. Jesus is tied to a post in the middle of the courtyard. The Roman whip is called a flagrum, leather straps. pieces of bone and metal braided into the ends. Each strike tears flesh. Each strike opens new wounds. The soldiers take turns. They're good at this. They've done it hundreds of times. Jesus doesn't scream, doesn't beg, doesn't cry out. He just takes it. 1 strike, 2 strikes, 5, 10, 20. The soldiers lose count. Malchus counts 39, the number for almost death. Jewish law said 40 lashes was the maximum, but the Romans didn't follow Jewish law. They followed Roman cruelty. They stop at 39, not because they're merciful, because they're bored. Jesus' back is a map of wounds, stripes, gashes, blood running down his legs. His robe is stuck to his skin. The soldiers have to peel it off. He cries out then, the first sound he's made, not a scream, a groan. The sound of a man who has reached the end of himself. The soldiers aren't finished. They take Jesus into the praetorium, the governor's headquarters. The whole battalion gathers. 600 men. They strip Jesus, put a purple robe on his shoulders, the color of royalty, the color of mockery. They weave a crown of thorns, press it onto his head. The thorns are long, sharp. They dig into his scalp. Blood runs down his face. They put a reed in his right hand, a pretend scepter, and they kneel, not in worship, in mockery. Hail, King of the Jews! They spit on him, take the reed from his hand, strike him on the head with it. The thorns dig deeper. They blindfold him, punch him, prophesy. Who hit you? Malchus stands at the edge of the room, watching. His ear is burning now, not tingling, burning. He wants to stop them. He wants to scream, "Don't you know who he is? He healed my ear." He picked it up from the dirt and put it back. He touched me. He loved me. And you're beating him. But Malchus doesn't scream. He's too afraid, just like Peter, just like everyone. The soldiers drag Jesus outside. The purple robe is stripped off. His own clothes are put back on, but they stick to his wounds. Every movement tears the scabs open again. The cross is laid on his shoulders. The wood is heavy, rough, splintered. Jesus starts walking out of the praetorium, through the streets of Jerusalem, toward the hill called Golgotha, the place of the skull. Malchus follows. He doesn't know why. He could go home. He could forget. He could tell himself that he was just doing his job. But his feet keep moving. His ear keeps burning. His heart keeps breaking. The streets are lined with people, some weeping, some mocking, some just curious. Jesus stumbles. The cross is too heavy. His body is too weak. He's lost too much blood. He falls. The soldiers shout at him to get up. He tries, falls again. A man from the crowd is grabbed. Simon of Cyrene, a pilgrim, come to Jerusalem for Passover. He's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The soldiers force him to carry the cross. Jesus walks behind him, barely standing, barely moving. Women are weeping, wailing, beating their breasts. Jesus stops, looks at them. Daughters of Jerusalem, don't weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. The days are coming when people will say, "Blessed are the barren, the wombs that never bore, the breasts that never nursed." Malchus doesn't understand what Jesus means, but he understands the tone. Jesus isn't afraid of what's coming. He's afraid for them, for the ones who will be left behind, for the ones who will have to live in a world that just killed its own God. They reach the hill, Golgotha, the place of the skull. The rock looks like a skull. 2 caves for eyes, a crevice for a mouth. Malchus has seen it 100 times. It never bothered him before. Today it looks like death. The soldiers prepare the crosses, lay them on the ground, lay Jesus on top of the wood. They stretch his arms along the crossbeam, drive spikes through his wrists. The sound is wet, crunching, like breaking bones. Malchus has heard that sound before. He's heard it every time the Romans crucified a rebel, but he's never heard it like this, never heard it and felt it in his own body. His wrists ache, his hands tremble, his ear screams. The soldiers lift the cross, drop it into the hole they've dug. The weight of Jesus' body pulls on the nails. He cries out, not a groan this time, a cry, the sound of a man being torn apart. The soldiers sit down, divide his clothes, roll dice for his robe. The priests stand nearby, mocking. He saved others. Let him save himself if he's the Messiah, the chosen one. The soldiers mock him too. If you're the king of the Jews, save yourself. One of the criminals crucified next to Jesus joins in. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us. But the other criminal speaks. Don't you fear God? We're getting what we deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong. He turns to Jesus. Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus looks at him. Even now, even here, even with nails in his hands and thorns on his head, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. Malchus hears those words. Paradise, not judgment, not condemnation, not you deserve this. Paradise. For a criminal, for a man who did nothing but ask. Malchus thinks about his own life, the arrests, the cruelty, the fear. He's done so much wrong. He's hurt so many people. And he never asked. He never asked for forgiveness. He never asked for paradise. He just did his job. And now he's standing at the foot of the cross, watching the Son of God die, wondering if it's too late to ask. The hammer fell. The cross went up, blood and wine in the same dark cup. A thief asked for a kingdom far far. A servant stayed where the shadows are. Not too late, but almost there. The ear that heard still breathed the air, and paradise hung on a wooden tree, waiting for Malchus to bend his knee. The hours pass like days. The sun is high now, but the sky is still wrong. Not gray anymore, dark. Like someone has pulled a curtain across the face of heaven. Malchus stands at the foot of the cross. He's been here since they lifted Jesus up. He hasn't moved, hasn't eaten, hasn't spoken. His neck is sore from looking up. His eyes are sore from watching. His ear is sore from hearing. And he hears everything. The mocking, the weeping, the prayers. Jesus speaks from the cross, not loud. His voice is weak. Each word costs him something. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Malchus has heard those words before. In the garden, when Jesus healed his ear, he didn't understand them then. He understands them now. Forgiveness isn't for the one who receives it. It's for the one who gives it. Jesus is forgiving the soldiers who nailed him there, the priests who condemned him, the crowd who screamed for his blood, and Malchus. He's forgiving Malchus for the arrest, for the trial, for standing by while they beat him, for not screaming when he should have screamed, for not kneeling when he should have knelt, for not asking when he should have asked. The soldiers are bored now. The crucifixion is routine for them. They've done it so many times that they don't see the people anymore. Just bodies, just work. They sit on the ground, roll dice for Jesus's clothes, laugh at jokes Malchus can't hear. One of them looks up at Malchus. You're still here. Malchus nods. Why? You got what you came for. He's dying. Go home. Malchus doesn't answer, because he doesn't know why. He only knows that he can't leave. Something is happening here. Something he doesn't understand. Something that is changing him from the inside out. His ear isn't just tingling anymore. It's humming, like a tuning fork, like a bell that has been struck and won't stop ringing. He touches it. Still whole, still healed, still warm. The chief priests pass by. Caiaphas is with them. His robes are expensive. His face is smug. He's won. The troublemaker is dying. The threat is over. Caiaphas sees Malchus, stops. You should not be here, the high priest says. Malchus doesn't look at him, keeps his eyes on the cross. Malchus, I'm speaking to you. Malchus finally turns. His face is pale. His eyes are red. Master, he says. The word feels wrong in his mouth now. Caiaphas is not his master. Not anymore. Not after what he's seen. Come away from here. Caiaphas says, this is no place for you. Malchus looks back at the cross, at Jesus, at the blood, at the thorns. This is the only place I should be. He says. Caiaphas's face hardens. What did you say? Malchus doesn't repeat it. He just turns back to the cross. Caiaphas stands there for a moment, confused, angry. Then he walks away, his robes swishing in the dust. Malchus doesn't watch him go. He's watching something else. Jesus is looking down, not at the priests, not at the soldiers, at his mother. Mary is standing at the foot of the cross. John is with her, the only disciple who didn't run, who didn't hide, who came back. Jesus looks at Mary, then at John. "Woman, here is your son." Jesus says, then to John, "Here is your mother." Mary doesn't weep, not anymore. She's done weeping. She's been weeping for 33 years. Ever since the angel told her that her son would be the savior of the world, she knew this day would come. She just didn't know it would hurt this much. John puts his arm around her, leads her away from the cross. Malchus watches them go. He thinks about his own mother, dead 5 years now. He wasn't there when she died. He was working, serving Caiaphas, keeping order. He never said goodbye. He never held her hand. He never told her he loved her. And now she's gone, and he's standing at the feet of a dying man who is taking care of his mother even as he dies. Malchus weeps, not loud, not like Peter in the courtyard, just silent tears, falling into the dust. The sky gets darker. It's the middle of the day, but it looks like midnight. The sun has disappeared. The clouds are black. The air is cold. People in the crowd are afraid. They've never seen anything like this. The earth is shaking. Rocks are splitting. Tombs are opening. Someone screams. Someone else falls to their knees. What's happening? They cry. No one answers, because no one knows. But Malchus knows. This is not an eclipse. This is not a storm. This is grief. Creation is grieving. The sky is mourning its maker. The earth is shuddering under the weight of what men have done, and Malchus stands in the middle of it all, his ear still humming, his heart still breaking. Jesus speaks again. "I thirst." A soldier puts a sponge on a stick, soaks it in sour wine, lifts it to Jesus' lips. Jesus drinks, and then he says the words that Malchus will never forget. "It is finished." Not "I am finished." Not "it's over." It is finished. The work, the mission, the love, finished, complete, done. Jesus bows his head, and he dies. The earth shakes, not a little tremor, a full earthquake. The ground rolls under Malchus's feet. He stumbles, falls to his knees. The rocks around Golgotha split open. Tombs in the distance crack. The curtain in the temple, the huge, heavy curtain that separates the Holy of Holies from the rest of the temple, tears in two from top to bottom. Not from the bottom up, from the top down, as if God himself reached down and ripped it open. The centurion, the Roman soldier in charge of the crucifixion, looks up at the sky, then at Jesus, then at the ground shaking beneath him. Surely this man was the Son of God, he says. Malchus hears those words. The Son of God healed his ear, died for his sins, and rose again. Well, not yet. Not now. Now he's dead. Now the tomb is waiting. Now the stone will be rolled. But Malchus knows something the centurion doesn't know. He knows the touch of those hands. He knows the sound of that voice. He knows that death cannot hold the man who healed his enemy in the middle of the night. The soldiers come to take the bodies down. It's almost the Sabbath. The bodies cannot stay on the crosses during the holy day. They break the legs of the two criminals, speeding their death. They can't push up to breathe anymore. They suffocate within minutes. But when they come to Jesus, he's already dead. They don't need to break his legs. One soldier takes his spear, drives it into Jesus' side. Blood and water flow out. Malchus watches the blood run down the wood of the cross, drip onto the ground, soak into the dirt. The blood of the man who healed him. The blood of the Son of God. The blood that was shed for him. For Malchus, for Peter, for the rich young ruler, for the criminal on the cross, for everyone. Malchus reaches out. His hand is shaking. He touches the blood. It's warm. It's wet. It's real. He brings his fingers to his face, smears the blood on his cheek, on his healed ear, and he prays. Not a temple prayer, not a prayer he was taught, just 4 words. "Forgive me, please." Joseph of Arimathea comes, the rich young ruler from our first story. He goes to Pilate, asks for the body. Pilate grants it. Joseph takes Jesus down from the cross, wraps him in linen, lays him in his own tomb, a new tomb cut from rock, never used before. Malchus helps. He doesn't ask. He just takes the feet, lifts, carries, walks. The body is heavier than he expected, not because of the weight, because of the love. He holds the feet of the man who healed him, the feet that walked on water, the feet that stood in the garden, The feet that knelt in the dirt to pick up Malchus's ear, now those feet are cold, still, dead. Malchus lays them in the tomb, steps back. Joseph rolls the stone across the entrance. The Sabbath is beginning. Everything must stop. Malchus stands in front of the tomb, his hand on the stone. "I'll come back," he whispers. The stone doesn't answer, but Malchus knows he will come back. He has to. The sun went dark. The earth gave way. A servant touched the blood that day. The feet that walked on Galilee, now cold and still beneath the tree. But Malchus knew, though death had come, the ear that heard was not yet done. He'd wait 3 days. He'd hold the stone and find that he was not alone. The Sabbath was the longest day of Malchus's life. He couldn't work, couldn't travel, couldn't do anything but sit in his small room and think. And thinking was the worst part. Because every time he closed his eyes, he saw the cross. Every time he opened his eyes, he saw his hands. The hands that had touched Jesus' blood. The hands that had carried his feet to the tomb. The blood was gone now. He'd washed it off, but he could still feel it. Warm, wet, real. He sat on the edge of his bed. His wife brought him bread. He couldn't eat. His children came to him. He couldn't speak. They didn't understand. They didn't know where he had been, what he had seen, who he had touched. His wife finally sat beside him, took his hand. "Malchus," she said, "what happened to you?" He looked at her. His eyes were red. His face was gray. "I saw him die," he said. "Who?" "The Galilean, Jesus, the one they crucified." His wife's face went pale. "You were there. I was there from the beginning. The garden, the trial, the cross. I saw all of it." She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked the question he had been asking himself. "Why?" He shook his head. "I don't know. I couldn't leave. Something kept me there." "What something?" Malchus touched his ear, the healed ear, the ear that had been cut off and put back. "He healed me," he said. "In the garden, Peter the fisherman, he swung his sword, cut off my ear, and Jesus picked it up, put it back, healed it, right there, in the middle of the arrest." His wife stared at him. "I saw your ear. It was fine when you came home. I thought you were never hurt. I was hurt. I was bleeding. I was screaming. And he knelt in my blood and touched my face and made me whole again." His wife touched his ear. Her fingers were gentle. She felt the place where the wound had been. There was nothing. No scar, no mark, no evidence. "How?" she whispered. "I don't know, but I know why." "Why?" "Because he loves me. Even though I helped arrest him, even though I stood by while they beat him, even though I didn't scream when I should have screamed, he loves me anyway." His wife started to cry, not loud, soft, the kind of crying that comes when something you thought was impossible turns out to be true. "Malchus," she said, "what do we do now?" He held her hand. "We wait." "For what?" "For the 3rd day. The 2nd day was worse." Malchus couldn't stay in his room anymore. He walked the streets of Jerusalem. He saw the city preparing for Passover, families gathering, lamps being lit, bread being baked. Everyone was celebrating. Everyone except Malchus. Because everyone except Malchus didn't know what he knew. They didn't know that the Son of God was dead. They didn't know that the tomb was sealed. They didn't know that the world had killed its own maker. He walked past the temple. The priests were there. Caiaphas was there. They were celebrating too. They had won. The troublemaker was gone. The threat was over. Malchus saw Caiaphas standing near the gate. The high priest's eyes met his. Just for a moment, there was something in Caiaphas's eyes that Malchus had never seen before. Fear, not of Rome, not of the crowd, of something else, of the tomb. Malchus had heard the rumors. The priests were afraid that Jesus' followers would steal the body, claim that he had risen from the dead, start the whole thing over again. Pilate had given them permission to seal the tomb, 2 postguards, to make sure no one could get in. But Caiaphas was still afraid, because Caiaphas knew something that Malchus was only beginning to understand. You can't seal a tomb that contains the Son of God. You can't guard a body that death cannot hold. You can't stop what is already in motion. Malchus found himself walking toward the garden, toward the tomb. He didn't mean to go there. His feet just took him. The garden was quiet. The olive trees stood in the darkness like silent witnesses. The moon was hidden behind clouds. The only light came from the torches of the soldiers posted at the tomb. Malchus stood at a distance, watching. The tomb was sealed with a large stone. The Roman seal was pressed into wet clay across the entrance. Breaking that seal was a crime punishable by death. Soldiers sat in front of the stone. Roman soldiers, trained killers. They weren't going anywhere. Malchus watched them, watched the stone, watched the tomb, and he remembered Jesus' words, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." He hadn't understood those words in the garden. He thought Jesus was talking about the temple in Jerusalem, the one with the gold and the marble and the priests in their fancy robes. But now he understood. Jesus was talking about his own body, the temple of his flesh, destroyed on Friday, raised on Sunday. Malchus looked at the stone, at the soldiers, at the seal. None of it mattered. If Jesus said he would rise, he would rise. Malchus didn't know how he knew this. He just knew, the same way he knew that his ear was healed. The same way he knew that the blood on his hands was holy. The same way he knew that he would never be the same. He went home. His wife was waiting for him. She saw his face and didn't ask where he had been. She just took his hand and led him inside. The children were asleep. The house was quiet. Malchus sat by the window, looking at the stars. "Do you remember?" his wife said. "When we first met." He nodded. "You were drawing water from the well. I was a young servant, new to Caiaphas' house. You were so proud," she said. "So sure of yourself. I was an idiot." She smiled. "You were young. There's a difference." He took her hand. "I'm not young anymore." "No," she said. "You're not, but you're different now. Softer. Like something inside you has been broken." Malchus looked at his hands, the hands that had touched Jesus' blood. "Something has," he said. "I just don't know what yet." His wife leaned her head on his shoulder. "Maybe it's your heart," she said. Malchus didn't answer, but he knew she was right. The night passed. The stars moved across the sky. The moon set. The sun began to rise. The third day, Malchus was awake before dawn. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. Something was pulling him, drawing him, calling him. He got dressed, walked out of the house, through the streets, past the temple, past the gates, toward the garden. The sky was gray. The birds were singing. The world was waking up. And then he saw them, women, running, weeping, shouting. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, Salome. They were running from the garden. Their faces were wild. Their eyes were wide. Malchus ran toward them. "What happened?" he asked. Mary Magdalene grabbed his arms. "He's gone." "Who?" "Jesus. The tomb is empty. The stone is rolled away. He's not there." Malchus's heart stopped, then started again. Faster, he ran, past the women, past the olive trees, past the soldiers who were no longer sitting. The soldiers were on the ground, trembling. Their faces were white. Their hands were shaking. Malchus didn't stop to ask them what had happened. He already knew. He reached the tomb. The stone was rolled away. The seal was broken. The entrance was open. He walked inside. The linen wrappings were there, folded neatly. The cloth that had covered Jesus' face was folded separately, but the body was gone. Malchus fell to his knees. He touched the stone where Jesus had lain. It was cold, but not empty. Something had been there. Something had happened. Something that could not be explained by grave robbers or stolen bodies or conspiracy. The grave was empty because Jesus was not dead. He was alive. Malchus ran back to the city. He ran to the upper room where the disciples were hiding. He pounded on the door. Peter opened it. His eyes were red. His face was swollen from crying. "Malchus, I saw it. The tomb. It's empty." Peter stared at him. "What? Empty? The stone is rolled away. The body is gone. The soldiers are on the ground like dead men." Peter grabbed his cloak, ran out the door. John followed. Malchus ran with them. They reached the tomb. Peter went in first. John followed. Malchus stood outside, waiting. Peter came out. His face was white. "He's not there," Peter whispered. John came out. "The cloths are folded." Someone folded them. They stood there, 3 men, staring at an empty tomb. And then Mary Magdalene arrived, breathless, crying. "I saw him," she said. The 3 men turned. "What?" "I saw him. Jesus. He spoke to me. He said my name. Peter grabbed her shoulders. Mary, are you sure? I know his voice. I would know it anywhere. Malchus didn't need to hear more. He fell to his knees, and he wept. Not like Peter in the courtyard, not like Mary at the tomb. Like a man who had been dead and was now alive. Like a man who had been lost and was now found. Like a man whose ear had been cut off and healed and was now hearing the voice of God. The stone rolled back, the grave undone. A servant saw the risen Son, not in glory, not in flame, but in the silence, calling his name. The ear that heard in the garden dark now heard the voice that left its mark. Not a whisper, not a cry, but a love that would not let him die. Malchus didn't go home that night. He couldn't. His feet carried him through the streets of Jerusalem, past the temple, past the market, past the houses of the priests who had killed Jesus. He walked without knowing where he was going. He walked because if he stopped, he would have to think. And if he thought, he would have to believe. And believing was terrifying, because believing meant everything he had built his life on was a lie. Caiaphas was not the voice of God. The temple was not the door to heaven. The sacrifices were not the path to forgiveness. Jesus was Jesus, who healed his ear in the garden. Jesus, who forgave his enemies from the cross. Jesus, who walked out of a tomb on the third day. Malchus had spent 15 years serving the high priest. He had arrested innocent people. He had looked the other way when the powerful abused the weak. He had told himself he was serving God, but he wasn't serving God. He was serving power, and power had crucified the Son of God. He found himself at the gate of the city. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and red, like the sky on the day Jesus died. A man was sitting by the gate, old, bent. His eyes were closed. Malchus almost walked past him, but something made him stop. The old man spoke without opening his eyes. "You're the one," the old man said. "The servant, the one whose ear was healed." Malchus froze. "How do you know that?" The old man opened his eyes. They were cloudy. "Blind. I hear things," the old man said. "I've been blind since birth, but my ears work fine." Malchus sat down next to him. "What's your name?" "Eleazar." Malchus had never heard the name before, but something about this blind beggar felt familiar, like they had met in a dream. "Eleazar," Malchus said. "What do you hear?" Eleazar tilted his head. "Right now, I hear a man whose heart is cracking, like ice on a frozen river right before it breaks." Malchus's breath caught. "I've heard that sound before," Eleazar continued. "Years ago, a rich young ruler, he stopped in front of me. He was afraid. He had everything, but he was afraid. His heart cracked. Just a little, but I heard it." "What happened to him?" "He came back," Eleazar said. "He gave away everything, followed Jesus, buried him in his own tomb." Malchus nodded slowly. "I know him, Joseph of Arimathea. He's not the only one," Eleazar said. "I've heard other hearts crack. Fishermen, tax collectors, women with pasts they couldn't forget, even a Roman centurion. They all came back. They all followed." Eleazar turned his blind eyes toward Malchus. "And now I hear you." Malchus's hand went to his ear, the healed ear, the ear that still tingled when he thought about Jesus. "What do I do?" Malchus asked. Eleazar smiled, a blind man's smile, the kind that sees something you can't. "You know what to do," Eleazar said. "You've always known. You were just afraid to do it." Malchus sat with Eleazar until the stars came out. The blind beggar told him stories about Jesus. Stories Malchus had never heard because he was always on the other side, always the enemy, always the one holding the torch instead of the one being healed. Eleazar told him about the woman at the well, 5 husbands, a life of shame, and Jesus who saw her not as a sinner but as a daughter. Eleazar told him about the leper who came back, 10 lepers healed. Only one returned to give thanks. He was a Samaritan, an enemy, and Jesus blessed him. Eleazar told him about the man born blind, not Eleazar, another man. Jesus put mud on his eyes, told him to wash in the pool of Siloam. The man came back seeing. "Did you ever want to be healed?" Malchus asked. Eleazar was quiet for a long time. "Every day," he finally said. "Every morning I wake up and I pray, 'Lord, let me see the face of my wife.'" Let me see the smile of my children. Let me see the sun rise over the hills of Jerusalem. Why didn't you go to Jesus when he was here? You could have asked him. Eleazar shook his head. I wasn't ready. Ready for what? Ready to see. Malchus didn't understand. Who isn't ready to see? Eleazar turned his blind eyes toward Malchus. People who are afraid of what they might see. People who have spent their whole lives in the dark. The light is painful at first. It burns. Malchus thought about his own eyes, how they had seen the cross, the blood, the thorns, the tomb, how they had seen the empty grave. The light was painful. It burned, but he couldn't look away. The next morning, Malchus went back to Caiaphas's house. He didn't go to work. He didn't put on his servant's robes. He didn't take his place by the door. He went to resign. Caiaphas was in his chambers, eating breakfast, bread, honey, figs. The high priest looked up when Malchus entered. His eyes narrowed. You came back, Caiaphas said. I came back to tell you I'm leaving. Caiaphas put down his bread. Leaving. I can't serve you anymore. The high priest's face hardened. Is this about the Galilean? Malchus nodded. I saw him. After he died, I saw the empty tomb. I heard the women. He's alive. Caiaphas. Caiaphas stood up. His chair scraped against the stone floor. You're a fool! Malchus. The body was stolen. His followers took it. We have guards who will testify to that. The guards are lying. I saw their faces. They saw something that terrified them. Caiaphas walked around the table, stood in front of Malchus. The high priest was shorter than Malchus, but his presence filled the room. I gave you everything. Caiaphas said, position, power, protection. Your family eats because of me. Your children have a future because of me. And this is how you repay me. Malchus looked at the man he had served for 15 years, the man he had admired, feared, obeyed, and for the first time, he saw him clearly, not a servant of God, a servant of power. Caiaphas, Malchus said, you asked me once what it felt like when Jesus healed my ear. I told you it felt like being forgiven for something I hadn't done yet. Caiaphas's jaw tightened. Now I know what that something was, Malchus continued. It was serving you. It was standing by while you murdered an innocent man. It was choosing power over truth. Caiaphas's face turned red. Get out. Malchus turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing, he said. The seal on the tomb, the soldiers, the stone, none of it mattered. He rose anyway, and you can't stop him. You can't kill him. He's not dead. Caiaphas, he's more alive than you've ever been. Malchus walked out. He didn't look back. He went home, told his wife everything. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was crying. I was afraid you would never come back, she said. Not to me, to yourself. He held her. I'm sorry. For all the years I was someone else, someone harder, someone colder. You were surviving, she said. I was dying, every day, a little more, until Jesus touched my face in the garden. She touched his ear, the healed ear. What do we do now? She asked. We follow him. How? He's not here. He went back to the Father. The disciples saw him. He ascended into heaven. Malchus smiled, the first real smile of his life. He's not here, Malchus said, but he's everywhere. In the poor, in the sick, in the prisoners, in the blind beggars by the gate. His wife looked at him. You've changed. I've been healed, he said. Not just my ear, my heart. Malchus found Peter a week later. Peter was in Joppa, staying with a man named Simon. He was still hiding, still afraid, still guilty. Malchus knocked on the door. Peter opened it, saw Malchus, stepped back. Malchus, Peter, why are you here? To forgive you. Peter stared at him. Forgive me. I cut off your ear, and Jesus healed it. Put it back, like it never happened. Peter's face crumbled. I denied him 3 times. I lied to a servant girl. I pretended I didn't know him, and he knew. He knew I would do it. He told me I would, and I didn't believe him. Malchus stepped inside, closed the door. Peter, I was there, in the courtyard. I heard every denial. I saw your face when the rooster crowed. I watched you run. Peter sank onto a bench, put his head in his hands. I'm a coward, Peter whispered. No, Malchus said. You're a man who was afraid. There's a difference. Peter looked up. His eyes were red. What's the difference? A coward runs and never comes back. A man who is afraid runs, but then he returns. You returned. Peter, you went to the tomb. You saw the empty grave. You believed. Peter wiped his eyes. He forgave me. On the beach, he asked me 3 times if I loved him. 3 denials. 3 declarations. He forgave me. I know, Malchus said. I was there. You were. I followed. After the resurrection, I watched from a distance. I saw him cook breakfast for you. I saw him take you aside. I saw you weep at his feet. Peter stood up, walked to Malchus, stood in front of him. I'm sorry, Peter said. For the sword, for your ear, for all of it. Malchus put his hand on Peter's shoulder. I forgave you a long time ago, in the garden, when Jesus healed me. He didn't just heal my ear. He healed my anger, my hatred, my desire for revenge. Peter started to cry. Malchus pulled him into an embrace. 2 enemies, no longer enemies, brothers, forgiven by the same blood, healed by the same hands, called by the same voice. The servant and the fisherman stood face to face. 2 men who had fallen from the same high place. One held a sword, one held an ear. Both held a forgiveness that conquered fear. The rooster crowed. The stone rolled back. No more hiding, no more lack. The ear that heard the soldiers cry now heard the whisper. You and I. The years passed like seasons, fast and slow at the same time. Peter became a preacher, loud, bold, fearless. The same man who had hidden in the upper room now stood in the temple courts and proclaimed the risen Christ. Thousands believed, thousands were baptized. The priests were furious. They arrested Peter, beat him, told him to stop speaking in the name of Jesus. Peter looked at them. His face was bruised. His back was bleeding, which is right in God's eyes. He asked, to listen to you or to listen to him. You decide. We cannot stop speaking about what we have seen and heard. They let him go. They couldn't kill him. Not yet. Malchus watched from a distance. He wasn't a preacher. He wasn't a leader. He was just a man with a story about an ear, a story about a garden, a story about a touch that changed everything. He told his story to anyone who would listen. In the market, by the well, on the road, the Son of God healed me, he would say, not because I deserved it, because he loved me. Some people believed, most people walked away. Malchus didn't care. He wasn't trying to build a following. He was trying to tell the truth. One day, Malchus went back to the Garden, Gethsemane. The olive trees were still there, older now, bent by the wind and the years. Malchus stood under the tree where Jesus had prayed. He knelt in the dirt. The same dirt where his blood had spilled. The same dirt where Jesus had knelt to heal him. He closed his eyes, and he prayed. Not a temple prayer, not a prayer of words he had memorized, just a conversation. Lord, he whispered, I was there. I helped arrest you. I stood by while they beat you. I watched you die, and you healed me anyway. The wind moved through the olive trees. The leaves whispered. I don't understand grace. Malchus continued. I don't understand why you would love someone like me. I was your enemy. I was the hand that tied your hands, and you touched my face. A bird sang somewhere in the distance, but I'm grateful. Malchus said, more grateful than I have words for. I was blind, Lord, not like Eleazar, blind in my soul. I couldn't see you. I couldn't see love. I couldn't see truth. I only saw power, orders, fear. He opened his eyes, looked at the garden where everything changed, and then you touched me. And I started to see, not all at once, little by little, like the blind man. You healed with mud and spit. First I saw trees, then I saw people, then I saw faces, then I saw love. Malchus touched his ear. And now I see you, not with my eyes, with my heart. You're here, Lord, in this garden, in this dirt, in this air. You never left. He stood up, brushed the dust from his knees. I'm not afraid anymore, he said. I was afraid for 15 years, afraid of Caiaphas, afraid of Rome, afraid of death. But you died for me. You rose for me. What do I have to fear? The wind stopped. The garden was silent, and Malchus heard a voice. Not loud, not thunder, not earthquake. A whisper. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Malchus fell to his knees again, weeping. Not sad tears, grateful tears. The persecution started slowly. At first, it was just words, people shouting at the followers of Jesus, calling them heretics, blasphemers, traitors to the faith of their fathers. Then it became stones. Stephen was the first, a man full of faith and the Holy Spirit. He preached to the religious leaders. He told them the truth about Jesus. They dragged him out of the city, threw stones at him until he died. Stephen prayed as they killed him, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them." Malchus heard about Stephen's death. He remembered Jesus' words on the cross, "Father, forgive them." The same words, the same love, the same impossible grace. Malchus knew that he could be next. The priests remembered him. Caiaphas remembered him. Malchus had betrayed them, walked away, joined the enemy. They would come for him, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe next year, but they would come. Malchus wasn't afraid. He had been afraid his whole life, afraid of losing his position, his power, his safety. Now he had nothing, and nothing was freedom. They came for Peter first, not to kill him, to arrest him, to put him in prison, to wait for the right time to execute him. The night before Peter was to be killed, an angel woke him. The chains fell off his wrists. The gates opened by themselves. Peter walked out of the prison. Free, he went to the house where the believers were gathered, knocked on the door. A servant girl named Rhoda came to answer. She heard Peter's voice, was so overjoyed that she ran back inside without opening the door. "Peter is at the gate," she shouted. They didn't believe her. They thought she was crazy. But Peter kept knocking. Finally, they opened the door, saw him, were amazed. Peter told them how the angel had freed him. Then he left, went to another place, to hide. Malchus heard the story. He smiled. Peter was still running, but now he was running to tell the story, not away from it. Malchus met Peter one more time. Years later, in Rome, both men were old now, white hair, bent backs, wrinkled hands. Peter had traveled the world, preached in Jerusalem, Antioch, Corinth, Rome. Thousands had come to faith. Thousands had been baptized. Malchus had stayed close to home, told his small story to small crowds, lived a quiet life of faith and service. They embraced like brothers. Malchus, Peter said, "The man whose ear I cut off." The same, Malchus said, "The man who forgave you." Peter laughed, a loud, joyful laugh. "We've come a long way. You and I. We have. Do you remember the garden? I remember every detail. The torches, the swords, the blood, his hands on my face." Peter grew quiet. "I remember running, hiding, lying. I remember the rooster crowing and my heart breaking." Malchus took Peter's hand, and I remember him healing me. Not just my ear, my heart, my anger, my fear. He healed it all. Peter squeezed his hand. "He's coming back." Malchus, "Soon. The signs are everywhere. The persecution, the false teachers, the love growing cold." Malchus nodded. "Let him come. I'm ready. Are you afraid?" Malchus smiled. The same smile Eleazar, the blind beggar, had smiled on his deathbed. "No," Malchus said. "I've been afraid my whole life. I'm tired of being afraid. He healed my ear. He healed my heart. He will heal my death." Peter looked at him, tears in his eyes. "Pray for me, brother," Peter said. "I will," Malchus said. "And you pray for me." They embraced again. Then Peter walked away, to his own cross. Tradition says Peter was crucified upside down. He didn't feel worthy to die the same way as his Lord. Malchus heard the news weeks later. He wept, not because Peter was dead, because Peter had finally stopped running. The years rolled on. The preachers preached. The stone of the tomb remained out of reach. Peter fell beneath the Roman steel. A servant's heart began to heal. Malchus lived to tell the tale of the ear that failed and the hand that prevailed. Two old men, two broken roads. Both found rest in the same abode. Malchus outlived them all. Peter was gone, crucified upside down on a cross in Rome. Paul was gone, beheaded by Nero's soldiers. James was gone, thrown from the temple and beaten to death with a club. Even Caiaphas was gone, deposed by the Romans, stripped of his power, dying in obscurity, while the movement he tried to destroy spread across the empire like fire. Malchus was old now, very old. His hair was white, his back was bent, his hands shook when he tried to hold a cup, but his ear was still whole. the ear that had been cut off, the ear that had been healed, the ear that had heard the voice of God. He lived in a small house on the edge of Jerusalem. His wife had died years ago. His children had grown and moved away. His grandchildren came to visit sometimes, bringing bread and wine and stories of their own lives. But most days, Malchus sat alone. Not lonely. Alone. There's a difference. Lonely is the feeling of being empty. Alone is the choice to be still. Malchus chose to be still, because when he was still, he could hear not the sounds of the city, the merchant shouting, the children playing, the priests chanting in the temple, something deeper. The sound of the Spirit moving through the world like wind through the olive trees. The sound of prayers rising from 1,000 lips in 1,000 languages. The sound of the bridegroom getting ready for his bride. On the last day of his life, Malchus woke up knowing something was different. The sun was rising over the hills of Jerusalem, the same sun that had risen on the morning of the resurrection, the same light that had flooded the empty tomb. Malchus sat up in bed. His bones ached, his breath was shallow, but his ear was tingling. The same tingling he had felt in the garden, the same warmth, the same electricity. He got dressed, slowly, one button at a time. His fingers fumbled with the cloth. He couldn't see as well as he used to. The world was a blur of light and shadow, but he could hear. He heard the birds singing outside his window. He heard the wind rustling the leaves of the fig tree in his courtyard. He heard the distant sound of the temple bells calling the faithful to morning prayer. And he heard something else. Footsteps. Coming up the path to his house. Light footsteps. Like a man who had nothing to lose, Malchus smiled. He knew those footsteps. He had heard them once before, in the garden, after the resurrection. When Jesus appeared to Mary Magdalene and then turned to look at Malchus, he had heard those footsteps and fallen to his knees. Now he heard them again, and he knew. The door opened. No one knocked. It just opened, and Jesus walked in. Not the Jesus of the cross, beaten, broken, bleeding. The Jesus of glory. His face shone like the sun. His eyes were like flames of fire. His feet were like bronze glowing in a furnace. His voice was like the sound of rushing waters. But his hands still had the holes. Malchus looked at those hands, the hands that had picked up his ear from the dirt, the hands that had pressed it back into place, the hands that had touched his face with love instead of revenge. Malchus fell to his knees, not because he was afraid, because he was home. "Lord," he whispered, "you came for me." Jesus knelt down in front of him, the same way he had knelt in the garden, the same way he had knelt when he washed the disciples' feet, the same way he had knelt when he picked up Malchus's ear. "I never left," Jesus said. "I've been with you every moment, every breath, every heartbeat. I was there when you woke up this morning. I was there when you put on your clothes. I was there when you sat by the window and watched the sunrise." Malchus wept. "I don't deserve this. I was your enemy. I helped them arrest you. I stood by while they beat you. I watched you die and did nothing." Jesus put his hand on Malchus's face. The same hand, the same touch, the same warmth. "Malchus," Jesus said, "you were never my enemy. You were a prisoner. Prisoner to fear. Prisoner to power. Prisoner to the lies of the enemy. And I came to set you free." Malchus looked up at Jesus, at the face that had haunted his dreams and filled his prayers. "Am I free now?" Malchus asked. Jesus smiled. The same small smile, the one that held more sadness than joy. But now, no sadness, only joy. "You've been free since the garden," Jesus said. "You just didn't know it yet." Jesus helped Malchus to his feet. Malchus was old. His legs were weak, but Jesus held him steady. "Come," Jesus said. "I want to show you something." They walked out of the house together, Malchus leaning on Jesus' arm. The sun was fully up now. The city was awake. People were in the streets, going to work, going to market, going about their lives. No one looked at them. No one saw them. Malchus was not surprised. He understood now. This was not a vision, not a dream. This was something deeper, something realer than the world of sight and sound. This was the kingdom that Jesus had talked about, the kingdom that was not of this world, the kingdom that was within. Jesus led Malchus through the streets of Jerusalem, past the temple, past the house of Caiaphas, past the hill of Golgotha. They stopped at the Garden, Gethsemane. The olive trees were still there, bent by the wind, older now, but still standing. Jesus led Malchus to the place where he had prayed, the place where he had sweated drops of blood, the place where he had said, "Not my will, but yours be done." "Do you remember this place?" Jesus asked. Malchus nodded. "I remember everything. The torches, the swords, the kiss, the blood. What do you see now?" Malchus looked at the garden, at the olive trees, at the ground where he had fallen. "I see grace." Malchus said, "I see the place where my old life ended and my new life began." Jesus put his hand on Malchus's shoulder. "No," Jesus said, "your new life began before the foundation of the world. When I looked at you and said, 'This one is mine, I will not let him go.'" They walked to Golgotha. The hill was empty now. The crosses were gone. The only evidence of what had happened here was the blood still soaked into the soil. Jesus stood at the foot of the hill, looking up at the place where he had died. "Do you remember this place?" Jesus asked. Malchus nodded. "I remember the darkness, the earthquake, the centurion who said, 'Surely this was the Son of God.' What do you see now?" Malchus looked at the hill, at the blood-soaked ground, at the sky that had turned black in the middle of the day. "I see love," Malchus said. "Love that would rather die than live without me." Jesus smiled, the wide smile, the real one. "That's what I've been trying to teach you all along." Jesus said, "Love, not rules, not religion, not sacrifices, not offerings. Love." Malchus fell to his knees. "Lord," he said, "I'm ready." "Ready for what?" "To come home." Jesus knelt beside him, took his face in his hands. "Malchus, son of Adam, servant of the Most High God, healed by my hand and saved by my blood. You have been home since the moment you believed. You just couldn't see it, but now you can." Jesus touched Malchus's eyes, and Malchus saw not the world of shadow and light, the real world, the world of glory. The world where death is dead and love is alive, and every tear is wiped away, and every wound is healed, and every enemy is forgiven, and every servant is made a son. Malchus saw Peter standing at the gate of the city, waiting for him. Peter smiled. "I told you, he wasn't done with you yet." Malchus saw Stephen, the first martyr, his face shining like the face of an angel. Stephen smiled. "You made it, brother." Malchus saw his wife, her arms open, her eyes full of tears. "I waited for you," she said. Malchus ran to her, embraced her, wept on her shoulder, and then he heard a voice behind him, "Welcome home, my good and faithful servant." Malchus turned. Jesus was standing there, his arms open, his hands still wounded, his face full of joy. "Enter into the joy of your master," Jesus said. Malchus walked toward him, not as a servant, as a son. The old man closed his eyes on earth and opened them in a second birth. The ear that heard the hammers fall now heard the music that ends all. No more garden, no more grave, no more fear of the hand that gave. Malchus walked through the golden door, and the ear that was healed forevermore. You've been waiting for an answer. Since the first minute of this story, you've been asking yourself, why did Peter never tell anyone about Malchus? Why did the Gospels include this strange detail about a severed ear and a healing in the middle of the night? What was Peter hiding? Here's the truth. Peter wasn't hiding anything. He was protecting something. He was protecting Malchus. You see, Malchus wasn't just any servant. He was the personal attendant of the high priest. He had access to the most powerful people in Jerusalem. He knew secrets that could destroy families, end careers, topple empires. If Peter had told the story of Malchus too loudly, too publicly, too soon, Malchus would have been killed, not by the Romans, by the priests, by the people he used to serve. So Peter kept the secret, not out of shame, out of love. The same love that made Jesus heal Malchus in the garden. The same love that made Jesus die on the cross. The same love that makes God wait for you and me and everyone who has ever walked away. But here's what Peter didn't tell anyone. Not because he was hiding it, because he wanted you to discover it for yourself. The ear, the severed ear, the healed ear. It was never about the ear. It was about listening. Malchus lost his ear, and then he gained it back. And then he spent the rest of his life using it to hear the voice of God. Not in thunder, not in earthquake, not in fire, in a whisper, in the wind, in the silence of a garden at midnight. Peter wanted you to know that. He wanted you to understand that hearing is more important than seeing, because anyone can see with their eyes, but only the broken can hear with their hearts. Do you remember Eleazar, the blind beggar by the roadside? He never received his sight, not on this side of heaven, but he heard. He heard the crack in the rich young ruler's heart, heard the footsteps of the man who had met the risen king, heard the voice of God in the silence of his own darkness. Eleazar died blind, but he saw more than most people with 2 good eyes, because he listened. And listening is the beginning of seeing. Malchus learned that lesson in the garden. He lost his ear, gained it back, and spent the rest of his life with one question on his lips. What is God saying right now? The servants of Caiaphas didn't understand Malchus. They thought he had gone mad. An old man, sitting by the window, whispering to himself. But he wasn't whispering to himself. He was whispering to God, and God was whispering back, not in words, in presence, in peace, in the quiet assurance that everything was going to be okay. Malchus had spent 15 years serving power. He spent the rest of his life serving love, and love, he discovered, was heavier than gold, but lighter than air. Love was the only thing that mattered. Love was the only thing that lasted. Love was the only thing that could heal a severed ear and a broken heart and a world gone wrong. The last words Malchus ever spoke on earth were not to his children, not to his grandchildren, not to the friends who gathered around his bed. His last words were to Jesus. He whispered them in the dark, just before the sun rose, just before the light flooded through his window, just before the footsteps came up the path. He whispered, "I hear you, Lord. I've always heard you. I just wasn't listening." And then he closed his eyes and opened them and saw the face of the one who had touched him in the garden. Now, let me tell you why this story matters. Not because Malchus was special, not because he was healed, not because he lived a long life and died in peace. This story matters because Malchus was ordinary. He was a servant, a follower of orders, a man who did what he was told because he was afraid of what would happen if he didn't. He was you. He was me. He was everyone who has ever done something they knew was wrong because they were too scared to do what was right. And Jesus healed him anyway. Jesus touched him anyway. Jesus loved him anyway. That's the hidden gospel, the one they don't preach from the pulpit, the one that sounds too good to be true, but it is true. Jesus heals the ear that was cut off by his own follower. Jesus forgives the man who helped arrest him. Jesus loves the people who killed him, and he loves you. Even if you've swung the sword, even if you've denied his name, even if you've walked away, even if you've never believed, he is still reaching out. His hand is still warm. His fingers are still gentle, and he is saying the same words. He said to Malchus in the garden, "Be still. I love you. I forgive you." Here's what Peter didn't tell anyone about that night. He didn't tell them that Malchus became his closest friend, that the man whose ear he cut off became the man who prayed for him every day, that the servant of the high priest became a servant of the Most High God, that the enemy became a brother, that the wound became a witness. Peter didn't tell anyone because he wanted them to find out for themselves. He wanted them to discover that grace is stronger than guilt. That love is stronger than fear. That forgiveness is stronger than revenge. That the ear that was cut off can hear the voice of God, and so can you. So here is your invitation. Not a demand, not a guilt trip, not a threat, just a question. What ear do you need healed? What wound have you been hiding? What sword are you still holding? What denial are you still whispering? What fear is still keeping you in the courtyard when you should be running to the tomb? Open your hands, let it fall, and let him touch you, because his hands are already reaching. They've been reaching since the beginning of time, and they will never stop. The garden is dark. The torches are bright. A wounded ear is healed by the light. The king is arrested. The servants flee. But the hand that heals is the hand that sets you free. The rooster crowed. The fisherman wept. The servant knelt where the Savior slept. The stone rolled back. The grave was bare, and the ear that was healed heard a whisper in the air, "Come forth, come home. Come follow me, for the ear that hears is the eye that sees." This is the hidden gospel. This is the story they didn't tell you. This is the servant whose ear was cut off and healed. This is Peter who swung the sword and was forgiven. This is Malchus who arrested Jesus and was loved. And this is you, standing in the garden, choosing every day, every moment, every breath. Will you swing the sword, or will you kneel? Will you run, or will you stay? Will you listen, or will you cover your ears? The choice is yours, but the hand is already reaching, and the voice is already calling. Be still. I love you. I forgive you. Come home. Post-credit scene. A hill outside Jerusalem. An old olive tree, and at the base of the tree, a small stone. Carved into the stone are two words. Malchus heard. No date of birth, no date of death. Just two words, because Malchus didn't want to be remembered for when he was born or when he died. He wanted to be remembered for listening. Below the stone, someone carved something else, smaller, fainter, like it was added years later. He cut off my ear. I forgave him. We are brothers now. Peter, and below that, one more line, written in a different hand, a hand that had holes in it. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your master, the ear that was cut off, the ear that was healed, the ear that heard the voice of God, and the hand that did the healing, still reaching, still touching, still saving, even now, even here, even you. But there's another story, one Peter didn't tell you, one Malchus couldn't tell you, because he wasn't there, not yet. It's about a man who died twice, once in Bethany, in a tomb, for 4 days, and once in Jerusalem, in his own bed, years later. But between those two deaths, he saw something no one else saw, something he was forbidden to speak about. His name was Lazarus, and the secret he carried, it would change the way you read the Gospels forever. Because Lazarus didn't just come back from the dead, he came back with a message he was told to keep hidden. Until now, end of episode 2. Next, episode 3, the disciple who died twice and the secret he carried.